Welcome back, thanks for tuning into my Reddit cheating stories. Where are you watching from? State in comment and let's dive in. Elias watched, feeling as though he was underwater, as the scene in front of him unfolded in slow motion. His wife, Sarah, stood next to her new boyfriend, Mark, who had his arm casually draped over her shoulders. Mark's children, a boy around 12 and a girl of 6, played on a blanket nearby, while Sarah and Mark's son, Ben, looked on quietly. It had all been so carefully orchestrated. The picnic in the park, the introduction of Mark and his children to Ben, the attempt to create a blended family before the divorce papers were even signed. Elias knew this was Sarah's way of trying to make everything as easy as possible for their son, but it felt like a knife in his heart. He had always known that Sarah was the one in charge of their relationship, the one who made the decisions and steered their course. But he had never felt so powerless, so completely at her mercy, as he did now. He couldn't help but wonder if she was truly in love with Mark, or if she was seeking an escape from something else. The 6-year-old girl, Mark's daughter, said something snide about Elias's old car, and Ben, usually a quiet and reserved child, erupted. "Mark's not who you think he is, Mom," Ben said, his voice shaking with emotion. "He's not a good person." The words hung in the air, a sudden silence falling over the group. Sarah's face paled, and Mark's expression turned to one of anger. Elias felt a surge of protectiveness towards his son, and he stepped forward, ready to defend him. But before he could say anything, Ben continued. "I saw him hit Mom once. I heard him yelling at her on the phone. He's not nice, Mom. He's not who you think he is." Sarah's reaction was one of disbelief, followed by anger. She denied the accusations, calling Ben a liar and saying that he was just confused. But Elias could see the doubt in her eyes, and he knew that Ben's words had struck a nerve. In the aftermath of Ben's revelation, the group slowly disbanded. Mark and his children left, and Sarah and Ben went home with Elias. The car ride was tense, with Sarah barely speaking a word to either of them. Elias couldn't help but wonder if this was his chance to salvage his relationship with his son, or perhaps even his marriage. He knew that Mark was far from perfect, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than Ben had let on. But at the same time, he knew that he had to tread carefully. Sarah was hurt and angry, and she was likely to lash out at anyone who tried to come between her and Mark. He also knew that he had to prioritize Ben's well-being above all else. In the days that followed, Elias and Sarah tried to navigate their new reality. Sarah continued to see Mark, but she was more distant and closed off than before. Elias could see the pain and confusion in Ben's eyes, and he knew that he had to be there for his son, no matter what. They spent long hours talking, with Elias encouraging Ben to open up about what he had seen and heard. Slowly, the full story began to emerge. Ben had seen Mark hit Sarah once, and he had heard him yelling at her on the phone on several occasions. He had been afraid to speak up, fearing that Sarah would be angry with him or that Mark would hurt him. Elias knew that he had to do something. He couldn't stand by and watch as his wife and son were hurt by Mark's abuse. He contacted a lawyer, who advised him to file for a restraining order against Mark. The process was long and difficult, but in the end, the restraining order was granted. Mark was ordered to stay away from Sarah and Ben, and he was banned from their home and workplace. Sarah was devastated by the revelation of Mark's abuse, and she struggled to come to terms with what had happened. She blamed herself, saying that she should have seen the signs and that she had been foolish to trust Mark. Elias was there for her, offering comfort and support as she worked through her emotions. He knew that it would take time for her to heal, but he was determined to be there for her every step of the way. As the weeks and months passed, Sarah and Elias slowly began to rebuild their relationship. They spent long hours talking, with Sarah sharing her fears and doubts and Elias listening and offering reassurance. They also focused on rebuilding their relationship with Ben. They spent quality time together, doing things that Ben enjoyed, and they made sure to listen to his thoughts and feelings. In the end, the revelation of Mark's abuse was a turning point for Sarah and Elias. It was a difficult and painful time, but it was also a time of growth and healing. They learned to communicate better, to trust each other more, and to put their family first. As for the legal and social implications, the restraining order against Mark was a significant factor in the divorce proceedings. It was clear that Mark was not a stable or trustworthy person, and Sarah was awarded full custody of Ben. Their social circle was also affected by the revelation of Mark's abuse. Some friends and family members were supportive, while others were quick to judge and condemn. But Sarah and Elias knew that they had to focus on what was best for their family, and they made the decision to surround themselves with people who truly cared about them. In the end, Sarah and Elias were able to find their way back to each other. It was a long and difficult journey, but it was one that was worth taking. They had learned to communicate better, to trust each other more, and to put their family first. And as for Ben, he was a resilient and strong young boy. He had been through a lot, but he was determined to move forward and to be happy. He knew that he had a loving family who would always be there for him, and he was grateful for that. The future was uncertain, but Sarah, Elias, and Ben were ready to face it together, as a family. They had been through a lot, but they had also grown and learned from their experiences. And they knew that, no matter what life threw their way, they would always have each other. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and share your thoughts.